Welcome back to Guitar Theory Modules. This is Module 72 and we're on pages 173 through 175. In the first part of this module, I'm going to show you how to recognize and write 7sus chords, also known as 7sus chords. In the last part of this module, I'll show you how to play some movable 7sus chords on the guitar. 7sus chords and 7sus chords. Pretty much the same thing, and you'll see them marked as 7sus chords in my books. And all a 7sus chord is, it's a dominant 7th chord where the third of the chord has been raised from a major third above the root to a perfect fourth above the root. And just to compare, here's what a C7 sounds like and a C7 sus. So the third of that chord, the E, has been raised to a perfect fourth above the C in the root. So there are two steps for constructing a 7sus or 7sus chord. First, write a dominant 7th chord. Second, take the third of that chord and raise it a half step or a minor second so it's a perfect fourth above the root instead of a major third. For example, to write an F7 sus or 7sus 4, first you would write an F7 chord. That'll be F, A, C, E flat. Next, you take the third of the chord, that A, raise it a half step or a minor second from an A to a B flat. Now that is a perfect fourth above the root of the chord, which is F. And now we have F, B flat, C, and E flat. And now we have an F7 sus. At the bottom of page 174, we have this exercise in constructing 7sus chords, or 7sus 4. Your job is to write these 7sus chords using those steps we just went over. First, write a dominant 7 chord, then take the third of that chord, raise it a minor second or half step so it becomes a perfect fourth above the root instead of a major third. If you have a copy of Guitar Theory Modules, you can write your answers right there in the book and check your work on page 228. Your chords may appear in a different octave than mine, and that's okay. If you don't have a copy of Guitar Theory Modules, you're going to need some manuscript paper to write on. I've got some free manuscript paper you can download from my website. The link is in the description. I'm going to go over the answers now, so pause the video, write your answers, start the video, and check your work. Number 1, G7 sus. First write a G7 chord. That's going to be G, B, D, and F. Next, take the third of the chord, that B, raise it a half step or a minor second, so it becomes a C. Now that note is a perfect fourth above the root, G. And we have G, C, D, and F, or G7 sus. Number 2, A7 sus. First write an A7 chord. That's going to be A, C sharp, E, and G. Take the third of the chord, that C sharp, raise it a minor second or half step so that it becomes a D, and now that note is a perfect fourth above the root, which is A, and we have A, D, E, G, or A7 sus. Number 3, B flat 7 sus. First write a B flat 7 chord. That's going to be B flat, D, F, A flat. Take the third of the chord, that D, raise it a half step or a minor second so it becomes E flat, and now that note is a perfect fourth above the root, and we have B flat, E flat, F, A flat, or B flat 7 sus. Number 4, E flat 7 sus. First write an E flat 7 chord. That's going to be E flat, G, B flat, and D flat. Take the third of the chord, the G, raise it a half step or a minor second, becomes an A flat, which is now a perfect fourth above the root, and we have E flat, A flat, B flat, and D flat. E flat 7 sus. Number 5, E7 sus. First write an E7 chord, that's going to be E, G sharp, B, and D. Raise the third of the chord, that G sharp, a half step or minor second, becomes an A, and now we have E, A, B, and D, or E7 sus. Number 6, B7 sus. First write a B7 chord, that's going to be B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. Take the third of the chord, that D sharp, raise it a half step or minor second. It becomes an E, which is a perfect fourth above the root, and we have B, E, F sharp, and A, or B7 sus. Number 7, A flat 7 sus. First write an A flat 7 chord, that's going to be A flat, C, E flat, and G flat. Next, raise the third of that chord, that C, by a half step or minor second, so it becomes a D flat. And that note is now a perfect fourth above the root, and we have A flat, D flat, E flat, and G flat, or A flat 7 sus. Number 8, C7 sus. First write a C7 chord, that's going to be C, E, G, and B flat. Next, take the third of the chord, that E, raise it a half step or minor second to an F, which is now a perfect fourth above the root, and we have C, F, G flat, and B flat, or C7 sus. And finally, D7 sus. First write a D7 chord, that's going to be D, F sharp, A, and C. Take the third of the chord, that F sharp, raise it a minor second or half step, so it becomes a G, which is a perfect fourth above the root, and now we have D, G, A, and C, or D7 sus. Being able to write out these 7 sus chords is well and good, but you want to be able to play them on the guitar as well. So I'm going to show you some movable 7 sus shapes. Because they're so closely related, we're going to compare these 7 sus shapes to the dominant 7 shapes you learned a little while ago. So here's a dominant 7 shape you can play with the root on the 6th string. We have a root, a 7th, a 3rd, and a 5th. To change this dominant 7 shape into a 7 sus shape, we need to take the third of this chord, that 4th finger, stretch it out one more fret, so now it's playing the 4th of the chord. Now that is not the easiest chord shape to grab, so I'm going to show you another shape that has more notes in it, but ironically it's easier to play. So all we're doing here is we're taking this 7 sus shape that I just showed you, we're adding a note on the 5th string, and we're barring with our 1st finger. And so now, our 1st finger is playing the root, 3rd finger is playing the 5th, 1st finger, which is barring, is playing the 7th, 4th finger is playing the 4th of the chord, not the 3rd, but the 4th, and 1st finger is playing the 5th of the chord, and if you like, you could bar the 1st string as well, and get another root in there. More notes in the chord, but easier than the other one to play. Now this is a movable shape, so you can play this anywhere on the guitar. This happens to be a B flat 7 sus that I'm playing because I'm placing the root of the shape on the B flat, string 6, fret 6. If I were to move it down a fret, so now my 1st finger is on the A with the root, now it's an A7 sus. And then if I move it down one more fret, it's an A flat 7 sus. Now here's a dominant 7 shape we've been playing with the root on the 5th string. This is the one that's shaped like a C7, but you're playing the middle 4 strings, so it's movable. Here we have a root, a 3rd, a 7th, and another root. To change this to a 7 sus shape, we take the root, the 3rd of this chord, we raise it one fret, and then we have to do some refingering. And now we have a 7sus shape. So we have second finger playing the root, third finger playing the fourth, fourth finger playing the seventh, first finger playing another root. So there is no fifth in this shape, and we are muting the first string and the sixth string. And this is also a movable shape. I happen to be playing an E flat 7sus because the root of the shape is on the E flat, string 5, fret 6. If I were to move it up 1 fret, so now my first finger is on the 7th fret on the 5th string, that E, now it's an E7sus. And if I move it up 1 more fret, it's an F7sus. The best way to practice 7sus chords, or 7sus4, is to play them as often as you can. So of course, play a 7sus if you see it in your music, but you can also try doing some substitutions. If you have a dominant 7 chord that lasts for 4 beats, try playing those first 2 beats as the 7sus or 7sus4 version of that dominant 7 chord, and then in the next 2 beats, go to the regular dominant 7 chord. Sometimes you like the way this sounds, and sometimes you won't, but you won't know until you try. And by the way, a little hint, if the melody note happens to be the third of that dominant 7 chord, then the 7sus chord will not work because the fourth, or the suspended note from that 7sus4, is going to clash with the melody note. Don't forget to check out my book, Guitar Theory Modules. Of course, you can watch all these videos for free, but if you have your own copy of Guitar Theory Modules, you'll have all this information in one place, and it's going to be a lot easier to follow along. So I'll leave a link in the description. Take your time with this, and then when you're ready, I'll see you in Module 73, where I'm going to show you extended intervals.